Member Guillieri, Member Burge, Member Wiggins, Member Mozingo, Member Martinovich. A quorum is present.
If you come up during the session that is in the agenda that meets what you need to talk about, but anybody can still come up and talk. I just make that suggestion. We're going to start with Lindsay from public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for Carson City. I just wanted to take a moment to formally introduce you all to Marina Lovejoy, our Senior Natural Resource Specialist. I know I mentioned she's been on with us since late May, but wanted to have an opportunity to bring her before you and introduce you. So with that, I will turn it over to Marina.
Yes, hi everyone. For the record, Marina Lovejoy, Senior Natural Resource Specialist. First time I get to say that. I've been here since the end of May, like Lindsay said. I did used to work for the city in a part-time capacity as the Carson City Weed Coalition Coordinator. That was in 2018 and 2019. And I'm really happy to be back full-time working with you all and with the great Open Space and Parks team. So happy to be here.
Any questions, comments? I just want to know how you skated coming to a meeting since May. Just worked out that way.
It just worked out that way.
Yeah, very effective that way. Thank you for coming tonight. So we all be introduced to yourself, and I know you and I are working already on at least on screen to screen on the Carson River plan. So she's taken, I guess, the lead, huh, Lindsay, for that? Yeah, for the Carson River plan that we got the grant from National Park Service. So she's going to be a valuable member for that. So I thank you for that. Thank you for coming, being aboard with this wonderful program here.
Thank you all.
Any other public comments?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Hope Sullivan started one of her employees by assigning her to deal with me over there, but Ms. Lovejoy has been very thoughtful and called, and they had a duo meeting. There was some backup from Lindsay so that if there were any questions, but I appreciated their responses. I appreciate the fact that when you do reach out, they will respond, and I would hope that that would be for everyone. I think sometimes that I'm the special whatever pain in the butt, but I do appreciate the fact that they don't treat me like I am. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate your efforts. I come here today to say that I'm concerned about stage 2 of the trail, the Prison Hill connective trail. First off, I think it's bigger overkill. I think could have achieved the request and the considerations that was put forward in the first considerations for the trail on a much smaller and more sensitive to the environment scale. So I'm opposed to the scale it was on 2, and I'm opposed to the upcoming scale that will be carried over through 3. I also wanted to read something about sage. I don't know how many, and I didn't know until last year that the sagebrush is the state's flower. It's the flower for all sorts of different reasons, but for one, because it maintains so much of the environment and the critters that live in it. And I often have to remind myself that, yeah, we have sage, but each area is so unique, and each little ecosystem is unique to the water that it has, the shade that it has, the heat that it has. And sage covers so many different critters. It compensates for their needs for the shade. It's what they eat. It's where they live. They live their lives. There's hundreds of different species just in insects on most of these plants. Some last over 100 years, one sagebrush. So I'd like us to start considering that we need to conserve it. If they had to move the sagebrush grouse because it's just not going to be able to stay in the habitat it is, where are they going to go if they can't find safe places that have the ecosystems that are necessary? So I'd like that to be considered. I'm opposed to the trail altogether, but I'm trying to find a way to relate to it. I think Loomis will be able to design a great trail, but they're instead designing a road, in my opinion. And I think that's a shame. If you've walked the first set on 2, you'll see that the peripheral damage that was done during the equipment has not been replanted. It's not grown after 3 years. And that's a shame. That means somebody's not watching, or somebody doesn't think that's necessary, but there's weeds there now. This area where you could walk with sage to your side and still smell the fragrance. And I'll bring up another part of that later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny. Any other public comment?
Good evening, Robin Orloff. I wanted to give a shout out to Greg Bergren and I imagine Jared and Joe working on the Hill. There's been like tremendous address of unauthorized riding in the OHV area. Probably for the last 2 months, there's been a huge lot of work being done there, correction of unauthorized riding, fencing, signage, vertical mulching, horizontal mulching. It's pretty impressive. So I really appreciate that. And I would, of course, like to see that's the unauthorized riding. And I'm hoping that maybe in the future we can look a little bit at some of the authorized designated trails that have been put in and maybe reassess those as well, perhaps with some of the OHV folks, the partners. I think there is some communication maybe with the Friends of Prison Hill or the Pine Nuts OHVers, and it'd be nice to include some of the rest of the working group, the hikers and the dirt bikers like me, but and maybe look at like we do and like Greg and Open Space does so well in the non-OHV areas, assess sustainability and damage and what we can do to fix that. And especially, you've all heard this before, but the ephemeral stream washes that I've showed are narrower than the vehicles that are going up and down them. Maybe that could be looked at. The BLM monitoring reports that I received 4 out of 7, thanks to Open Space. And they don't really look at the interior of the riding area, and that might be something maybe we could go over, even discuss with BLM. And one of the people doing the reports was actually a hydrologist, but that person, there was no look at the West Basin and all the west slope of Prison Hill, non-motorized or motorized, and probably that will be addressed in the upcoming ADMP, but the major drainages and what impacts is recreation causing in the major drainages, it would be nice to look at. So maybe that's something that we can all work on together. And I don't know if you're timing us, but sounds like 3 minutes.
You're close.
I'm close.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks again to Greg. I mean, they've been doing a real push and a real effort. And thanks for the Odyssey Trail extension up in the non-OHV. My husband just took that from the saddle towards the east side. That is awesome. And all the new projects going on that Open Space is doing are greatly appreciated. And the cap to Tahoe, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, oh, did you, I'm sorry, I'm ready to bypass you.
I'm in the right place.
You're in the right place. Well, I don't know. We'll see what you want to talk about.
Yeah. So park and recreation, is that you guys?
Say that again.
Parks?
Park?
Parks and recreation.
Yeah,
Is that
sure.
going to be
Yeah, well, we're
discussed?
not that board. There's two boards in this,
Okay.
in Carson City. There's one Parks and Rec. We're open space.
Okay, so it's not the same
They're not
agenda.
the same. They do different things, but not to say open space doesn't have parks involved with it. But, well, you can still speak to us because.
Let me raise the topic, and if it's not you, please stop me immediately.
No,
I
we
don't
will
want to waste-
we'll still listen, and the big boss is sitting down there at the end, Jen, that listens for both boards, so she's got ears for this too. So.
Well, I don't want to waste any of your time, and including mine. So, just a quick topic: the Reynold D. Wilson Memorial Park that is located on Mark Way. There is a playground over there. It's closed since the beginning of pandemic. I did reach out to the city, and the answer that I got that because of the supply chain, and it sounds like a ridiculous reason for a playground to be closed almost 3 years now. My kids enjoyed the park in the first months of their life, and since then the place is locked with fences. And it's sad, there is no reason for that. Already Carson City don't have many young families, unfortunately. And anything that we can do in order to keep the young families in here and not moving to Reno or other cities or Gardnerville will be good. The playground is big part of the community. It's healthy for the kids, but let me tell you a big secret. It's also very healthy for the parents. Letting your kids going there and running there and meeting with other kids and building a community. So please address that topic, if you may.
Well, a total understanding to that, and that's actually what Parks and Rec try to do is have those experiences. So I think you're going to get a phone number here in a second to call direct so that
Perfect.
that can be worked on for you.
Thank you.
So you did
I
come
think,
almost to
Jennifer,
the
I
right
think
spot.
you and I actually did talk by email at the past. Well, so all of the questions were addressed to you and answered by you, but the playground is still closed today.
Well, you guys talk again.
Perfect, we will.
Right, I understand
Okay.
that. Yeah, we can't talk past just you giving us
That's okay.
information, but
Well-
you were listened to, and you've been given a business card, and that's pretty good, actually.
Thank you, I appreciate it all.
All right, thank you. Okay, there's no more public at this point, so we're going to come back for approval of the minutes. Oh, was there another public? Oh, you're just getting set. I get you. All right, we got. So, approval of minutes, was there anybody had any changes there? You caught? I had one thing, small thing. On page 3, I think it was page 3. I wrote it down on a piece of paper, now I can't find it, of course. It was right at the beginning, and I'm talking about the young man who did trails, and the word disgusting's in there, and I go, I hope I didn't say that. And I can't think of anything that would be close to that. It's, yeah, so I can't believe I said disgusting. for
Yeah,
this
I'll
poor
get
kid.
that. Yeah, I'll take that out.
Okay, that's all I asked for. I didn't want my legacy to have that poor this tall kid is disgusting. So we're fine with that. So with only that change, can I get a motion then, since there are no other changes?
I'll move to approve the minutes for the October meeting.
Do I get a second? Jay, second. I'm going to call for the question. And everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Rob's an abstention.
And Susan,
Susan?
I was not here.
Okay, 2 abstentions. All right, so we took care of the minutes. So now we're moving to the meeting, section 5, for possible action, discussion of possible action regarding the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting schedule for calendar year 2024. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for the record. So typically, every year, each December, we choose the dates for the upcoming year for our meeting schedule. So with your staff report, there is a list of kind of tentative dates a few of which have been kind of moved around because of holidays and things like that. But now would be the time to let us know if any of these dates might not work for the committee.
I just want to say, in April, I have to go to Oklahoma, but I don't know the date yet. So just be forewarned. And June 17th, I wasn't thinking when I scheduled it, I am going to be hosting a gathering the 14th through the 18th at Washoe State Park of, it's called an Alto Gather of my trailer. So I've got already 9 trailers coming, so we'll be there. I will try to make the meeting that night.
Bring them here.
Well, no, I wanted to say, you're all welcome to come see. They're going to be from my size trailer into bigger trailers. You can come see all the trailers. And, you know, we're interesting trailers. We're different from regular trailers. But we will be hosting, I think I'm going to have a speaker from Nevada State Parks, and we'll be doing the V&T Trail, and we'll be coming into Carson City for hikes and stuff like that, so, and museums and things like that. I may have as many as 20 trailers coming in from all over the country. So, but anyway, I will try to make the meeting. I'll look at the agenda to see if there's anything really important I have to be here for.
You took that chance to make a good plug for your program there.
Yeah, we invite everybody for the meeting from all over the country, yeah.
Susan,
Lindsay, I have a question. You have an asterisk on April 15th that's an exception, but that's still the third Monday. So I was wondering if I missed something, or why is it asterisk?
That is a great question. That might have just been an extra, that
Okay.
might have been an error
Okay.
when they were putting the
So,
schedule
but
together.
you are looking at that Monday, April 15th. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I challenge you to use that word for Scrabble.
I can't do it.
Asterisk. Any other comments for schedule? It seems like we're okay then. So is it an action? It's an action item. So can I have a motion to approve the schedule as proposed?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting schedule for the calendar year 2024.
Second? Sam, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're not going to abstain, are you? Okay. Okay. Well, that's announcement we haven't made yet, so he's abstained, but because he won't be here, so that's a good reason. So everybody else is okay, so we got through 5A. So let's go to 5B. For possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the 2022 annual report activities of Open Space Committee to be presented to the Board of Supervisors. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So first off, please accept my apologies. It is not my goal to have the 2022 report at the end of 2023. Normally, we bring it at the beginning. But just with bringing Marina on this year and being short-staffed and training, you know, it's just one of those things that is hard to get to, but I wanted to make
So
sure.
you're blaming on Marina is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's all Marina's fault. But, you know, it is required by municipal code that we bring this every year, so I wanted to make sure that we slipped it in 2023. So with that, I'll just kind of go through some, you know, notable highlights from 2022. So I think one of the major ones right off the bat was that we brought on new staff in 2022, several new positions, including our volunteer coordinator, and that was a long time coming to bring that position on. It was also our first year bringing on a full-time open space maintenance worker to add to our maintenance team, so that was huge. And then, of course, we had lots of different kind of staff turnover in 2022. So all of our team that was in 2022 is noted here, and there's a great picture of the open space team out visiting our Forest Legacy parcel, the Ash Canyon View Crest open space all the way at the top of Ash Canyon. So that was a fun outing for us. Going through some other notable highlights, Obviously, the grant funding is always an area that I like to highlight. In 2022, Open Space either received or was an identified partner on 12 different grants, which total over $12 million. Within Open Space, we always try to leverage grant funds as much as possible to make great projects happen, and this is a really great example of how we've been able to do that and bring some, pretty big dollar amounts into Carson City. So we're very proud about that. Moving into capital improvement projects, there were definitely some big projects that were completed in 2022. We made huge progress on, the Capitol to Tahoe Trail, and we completed the Lincoln Bypass Trail in 2022, which was amazing. So some big regional trail developments. Kind of in that same area, we completed the Kings Canyon Road repair project. That was a long time project, took many years to get that completed, working in conjunction with the Forest Service. It took a number of years to get the repair design completed and all the Section 106, but we were finally able to go in and repair that road, which was very heavily damaged after the 2017 floods. So it's now passable and safely navigable by high clearance vehicles. Also in the Kings Canyon area, we completed the Kings Canyon Trailhead. That was probably the biggest project of 2022, was unveiling that project, which included 25 new parking spaces, as well as a vault toilet, ADA parking, new signage, as well as some trailer parking. So we were very proud, and that was another badly needed, long time coming project. Of course, the Prison Hill OHV area, 2022 was a big year for work out there. We were able to construct 52 check dams, which is quite a feat, as well as a variety of other kind of erosion control features. And so we were very proud of the work we were able to complete out there in 2022, and the maintenance and continued restoration work will just continue in future years. Moving into land management, this section is often, kind of where we highlight a lot of our repeat, ongoing, every year type activities. Of course, we did our bird surveys along the Buzzy's Ranch Trail in Riverview Park, and that was the first year we brought in some really amazing volunteer birders to assist with that effort, and they helped really increase our numbers as far as being able to hear the bird calls and really get accurate counts. So that was awesome, and we're going to continue working with them in the future. We held the 5th annual Carson River cleanup in August of that year, and this is where staff go out and clean up a section of the river, and we use it as kind of a bonding opportunity as well as a chance to check out how things are going on the river. We weren't able to do that in 2023 because of the high water year, so 2024 will be busy if we're able to make it out there. Of course, we work on things like noxious weed abatement. That's a big chunk of what we do each spring and summer. Jared Whitaker, our open space maintenance coordinator, was busy trying to manage the noxious weed populations that we have, especially along the river corridor. We continued with our rust fungus Canada thistle control project. We've seen really great control of Canada thistle through using this naturally occurring agent. So that has been a really great example of integrated pest management and trying to reduce our reliance on herbicide. Kind of a notable one for 2022, staff worked with the Sagebrush and Prisons Project to grow over 1,000 pollinator plants, so several flowers and some perennial grasses as well. That was the first year that the Sagebrush and Prisons Project worked on anything besides sagebrush. So they were really excited. We had the opportunity to go into the prison and talk to them about the project and see where they were growing all the plants. So that was really, I think, a unique thing for 2022. And then we ended up planting the plants in 2 sites, one at the fishing pier at Carson River Park and one along the Buzzy's Ranch Trail. So those are now established pollinator garden sites, and we hope to have a bee hotel or some interpretive signage in the future at those locations. Also in 2022, several open space staff presented at the Carson River Watershed Forum, which is put on by CWSD. So Greg and I were able to put together a presentation kind of highlighting open space and trails. And then Georgia, who was our natural resource specialist at the time, was able to talk about Eurasian water milfoil, which is definitely an ongoing and emerging topic in the watershed. So we're always happy to participate in those kinds of education opportunities. Of course, we continued with the Carson City Sheep Project. 2022 was the 16th year we've been operating that project, so a really good example of long-term management that we've been involved in. You all probably remember going through the open space naming process, and that was very exciting to get formal names for 7 additional open space properties. And then we did our kind of first year of monitoring from the Prison Hill fire that happened in 2021. So we were very excited to see how many native plants were coming up, especially on the north slopes. The southern slopes are obviously a little bit more challenging, but very heartened to see the recruitment that was happening there. I think the heavy winter, that winter after we seeded did help, but things up there are looking really good, and we're going to continue monitoring in subsequent years as well. And then Greg has his kind of trail corner, talked about our trail use in 2022. He put in this great table so you can kind of see how trail use has changed over time. We are just getting more and more trail counters and trying to put them in key locations throughout open space. So we're going to continue to gather data and be able to kind of see how the use is changing. Obviously, the waterfall trail being our #1 most visited, it's pretty amazing to see some of those annual numbers that we get from these trail counters, you know, over 122,000. That's pretty amazing. So this data that we're collecting is very helpful. And then Greg kind of went through some different trail projects that we had worked on in 2022. Big emphasis on getting signage in key locations, beginning work on the Odyssey Trail, which has been very exciting, as well as putting together the Empire Ranch Trailhead, which was previously a disturbed area that we've been able to turn into a great parking area for that side of the Empire Ranch Trail. We had some equestrian enhancements in 2022. We always love hearing from our equestrian users, and we were able to get some gates and gate latches that are equestrian friendly installed at Silver Saddle. So that was a big one for us. And then I think adding the Silver Saddle Ranch history panel at the kiosk was also very exciting for 2022 because there's just so much history to share about Silver Saddle Ranch. Moving into kind of activities and events, I did want to highlight some different programs that we held in 2022. Specifically, one huge one that I already alluded to, but on National Trails Day, we did a grand opening of the Kings Canyon Trailhead, so everyone could see all the great work that was done with that flap grant and just the transformation that took place at that trailhead. And you can see a great photo of our ribbon cutting from that day. 2 new programs that we held in 2022 was the Carson City Source Water Assessment Day and the High Watermark Mural. So these were both projects that were in conjunction with a few different partners, especially Public Works, but we also worked with River Wranglers and CWSD, a lot of our partners that we work with on water and watershed related issues. So we were able to put together those 2 new events. And then since then, the Source Water Assessment Day has continued on. So hopefully that becomes an annual event. And related to the High Watermark mural, if you guys haven't had a chance to see that beautiful mural, it's just on the underneath the freeway, on the freeway multi-use path. And that was a mural that was put together to kind of highlight the fact that Carson City floods and that, to be aware of the fact that we flood, so a flood awareness component, but also understanding that we've preserved and protected our floodplain and how much that protects our community. So Open Space and CWSD are actually working on some additional high water mark items. It won't be a mural, but it will be another way to celebrate and show flood awareness in our community. Another grand reopening that we had in 2022, the Prison Hill OHV area This was an opportunity to kind of show off all the work that we had done and invite out all of our amazing partners. And then we were able to have kind of a guided tour as well. So you'll see photos here from that day of the ride that staff took with the sheriff's office and some of the demonstrations by the rock crawlers. So that was a beautiful day, and it was very exciting to share what we had done at that location. Just a few more items here. One I really wanted to highlight was the adaptive mountain bike workshop. That was a first for us. It was really awesome to invite out all these different folks, including the recreation specialists from Reno Adaptive, and just be able to celebrate the fact that we have all these wonderful multi-use trails in Carson City, and we're really trying to promote, use by all and access by all. And this is kind of an example of how these trails can be utilized for that. So we're hoping to have more of these types of events in the future. Of course, we participated in the Transportation Trails and Tourism Summit last fall, and Greg was nominated and received an award under the Agency Champion category, so we were very proud of him for that. And then just lastly, moving into volunteer activities, obviously we want to really highlight what we were able to accomplish having a volunteer coordinator on. Chelsea only came on board the end of 2022, so those numbers will be more reflected in 2023. But you can see we still received an estimated value of over $117,000 from volunteer efforts, which is just under 4,000 hours of volunteers spent in 2022, which was amazing. So there's a table here that just kind of goes through some of the most notable events that we had. Of course, as well as Muscle Powered and all of their efforts. They continue to be our number one volunteer partner, and we so appreciate all of our volunteer efforts, and especially Muscle Powered. And then on the back page, I just kind of include a smattering of different photos from the year. And with that, I will take any questions.
Any comments, questions from the board? Susan?
Just a quick comment. I was questioning the year, so thank you for explaining that. But this is very good. I like the way that it's presented, and it's open, and the public can really get a handle on what the staff and what the program is doing. So thank you for all your efforts and your team's efforts on this.
I just want to second that. Yeah, I was questioning the year too. I thought, boy, she lost a year there. But yeah, it's, what your staff does in a year is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And I know that the rest of Northern Nevada really is green with envy. So.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I really like this report as well. I had a question though. You mentioned a trail counter. I've never heard of that. Is that some electronic device that's at a trail that I didn't know I was being tracked?
For the record, Greg Berger, and Trails Coordinator, and that's a great question, actually. And I was going to mention something about that when I have my opportunity, but now's a perfect chance. So we have trail counters on a number of our trails, and it's just it's a little infrared scanner that just all it does is count someone's a bicycle or a pedestrian or whatever going by. But what I wanted to mention is that one of the small ways that we use that data, and it's reflected in this in the sheet on Lindsay's 2022 report, the waterfall trail. Well, during COVID, the usage just blew up. It was crazy, and you can see that it's an annualized count of 122,892, and I realize that's two ways. It's counting, it's counting people both ways, but those numbers are too high. And so we use that data to see how, what kind of usage we're having on the trails. And we have, in the last couple of years, started working very closely with Visit Carson City, our Culture and Tourism Authority, to try to help to distribute the use throughout the community. So We have brought the usage on the waterfall trail down, and we've kind of distributed that to other places in the community. And I realize that the usage also came down after COVID, and usage has come down everywhere a little bit since COVID, because that was a peak for sure. But also, again, it's just working working in how we market trails and stuff in our community. We can kind of try to distribute the use. So I hope that answers your question.
Sure. Are you planning to add any other counters out there?
Yeah,
Other
we definitely want to get one on the Capitol Tahoe Trail this coming spring. I'll talk more about that later, but do you have any suggestions?
Where not to put them.
Well, I'd be biased because
Yeah.
I live by certain trails, so I'm not going to say. But I do think that's a really valid way to start to justify where a lot of our efforts go within the community. So, thank you.
Anything, Rob? No. So, yeah, I was going to ask about those counters too, because sometimes they're challenging for correction, but if you have closeness, the rim trail, you'd have to drive a day to go check one sometimes, but I couldn't believe the numbers. That meant like half of Carson City was on the trail in the 2 months. For a town of 50,000 people with 15,000 people going up to the waterfall. I go, it's like take a number. So I love seeing the metrics this time. I think actually when you guys gave a report, I said that the metrics is what you want to take to the Board of Supervisors. Very importantly, the money savings and the metrics of the use to justify and to show what that little tiny bit of sales tax did for this community is totally unbelievable. Just it'll blow up like a bomb if you actually look at what you just produced. So it's, and I say every year, it is not a waste of time at all about all the effort you put into it, and that's a lot of effort to put a report out that long, and to check the English and to make sure the right verb tenses and all that stuff. It's a very clean, nice, good report with some nice pictures in there to mix that up. So, and I just hope that you blow that horn to let them know all these successes from this program. It's just outrageous. And like Donna said, you guys don't have a lot of staff. And I've worked in parks for a long time and have never seen this much progress in that many areas for so few staff. It's huge. So you guys do a great job. So I was really pleased to see that 15,000 people. So the only thing I was going to say about counters, we tried one with magnetic field underneath so you could see if they were mountain bikes or hikers. And they don't work as well as you hope they would work, but I didn't know if you'd look those. It's always nice to know how many mountain bikes are on that trail versus people. But this isn't a directive, it's more just an inquiry.
Yeah, we've talked about using seasonal staff or something to try to do some visual surveys and counts,
Get
just to get
percentages.
samples and.
Yeah, you can do
and,
that if you
we
go
should
out
be-
and block times, certain days, weekends, weekdays, certain times of the day. But that takes a person, maybe muscle power might help you there. They sit there and they give them a little chair and a hat, little shade, umbrella. They could sit there and do that for a while. We've
It
had
would
to
also
do that before.
It would also be good to get some, not just quantifiable, but qualitative information, like the types of bicycles,
E-bikes.
e-bikes, non-e-bikes, perceived speed, things like that.
Yeah, well, that's your bailiwick. That's what you're hired to do. So thank you for that feedback.
One other thing I'd really like to see, and maybe Muscle Power could be a source for this, is to do some surveys to find out how many outsiders we're getting in here. So we could talk about,
Outside of Carson City?
outside of
So they're
Carson City.
outside it? Okay.
No, so that we could report to the Visitors Authority and to the Board of Supervisors how much we're bringing in revenue into the city. We're attracting, we know that we are attracting visitors to the town and we're bringing in revenue, but it'd be nice if we could, prove that. Say, we are benefiting the community with our trails. But that takes people out there with clipboards and getting people to stop and talk to them. But at trailheads, if we could be doing that, and I think we could get enough muscle-powered people out there a few days to do something like that. I know I'm speaking for muscle power, but I'm still on the board, so
So when we did the trail plan, we actually have some of those statistics that this is your shoulder season. Tons of people come down from the lake to ride the trails, and we have some data from that, but that's years ago, before all the work you've done. So, and that was a simple survey, so maybe that could happen in the future. And since we're 2 years behind on the reports, here we go. Back in the 1900s, when we were doing that way, that's when. So, thank you, and I applaud you, and I hope that the Board of Supervisors stand up and give you an applause for that report. That's just great. Thank you, and thank staff, and thank Jen for her support for what you guys do. So, thank you. Now, it's an action item, so can I get a motion to accept the report?
I'll make a motion to accept the 2022 report.
I have a second. Second, Susan. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Carries unanimous. Okay, so before I move into the next action item, I screwed up. I made a mistake. I will be punished somehow. I didn't have public comment after the last action item. So I'm asking for public comment after this, and I will keep asking for public comment. So I gypped you out of one opportunity. So you can put that on my report card at the end of the night here. So, but now I'm open for public comment. If there's any public comment on this report or any other comment, come on up, Danny.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that very much. And in here, there was an area that wasn't covered during the discussion just now, and it's a disc park, but it's in the report. And I wondered if there was anything. I know that it's had an upgrade, and I intended to get up there this last Friday, and I wasn't able to. And it's beautiful in the pictures I've gotten to see on the computer, but at the point that it was just fairly new, what was a count on, or doing a count on use of that? I know it's open space park, so is that considered a park, or how is it designated as? Oh, I'm sorry.
You're stumping
asking
the
me a
chair
question.
here.
I'm sorry.
No,
but
you don't be apologizing
no,
for
it
that.
wa-
That's a question that
Yeah,
we
and
can.
I could have you direct that to
I'm
Lindsay.
waiting to see what else you might have a comment
Oh,
about.
I just really, that was something because it's a big deal as far as volunteers and such. I just wondered what the usage, because you did mention the readers for the other trails and different situations that you're going to be utilizing that in this situation or no. And so,
Well,
I
I'm
didn't,
assuming if it wasn't in the report, Denny, that they don't do it. So, but
that's
the
it.
numbers,
That
right?
was it
Otherwise, they would have
on
been
this.
bragging about that too.
Just, I'm sorry, I would what?
I would assume if they had numbers, they would have put it in the report, but I'm assuming. So
Well, I'm
I'm
trying
trying to
not
set this question up so I can ask Lindsay the right question here, because your question was why there were no use figures for the disc park?
No, are they going to consider doing that in the future? Because this,
future.
yes. And so I had to consolidate paper, and so I didn't get all the pictures, and I had to jam things in and cut and paste. But the PowerPoint, I could probably take a look at it later, but it does bring the part, or the, gosh, what do you call it? A disc park?
A facility,
Yeah.
a management unit? I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, I'm
but
sorry.
it's not
I
a
don't
park,
either, but it's
think.
in here, and it wasn't mentioned. Thank you.
You bet. All right, Lindsay, can you answer if it's a park and if in the future you might put some metrics there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So the reason why the disc golf course was mentioned was just purely in our volunteer numbers. It's not an open space property. It's managed by the park side of our department. So I don't know if they have any plans to put any trail counters up.
All right, thank you. That's a good
Thank you very
answer.
much.
All right, Danny, thank you. Any other public comments at this point?
Robin Orloff. I want to thank Open Space again for all they do for trails and all our opportunities here in town. And I realize that was a 2022 report. And again, I usually go back to the OHV area. And I think it saw an incredible amount of excellent development, new trails, new roads, very well appreciated by everyone who rides there. And I'm wondering if Open Space might consider for 2023, perhaps looking again at the open areas, which are 23 acres, or actually 32 acres of open riding within the boundaries, and cross-country freestyle riding is allowed. And there is vegetation in those areas that is being impacted because it's allowed to be ridden over. And I know open space is very careful about preserving their natural resources, and I know the commission is very concerned about that per 1306 and per your mission statement. And I just find that there's a bit of a contradiction still with the open areas. I know they were developed, they were allowed to have riding over vegetation because it had been allowed in the 900 acres. And I think the grantees' goal was to keep that damage just to the 32 acres. But I'm wondering now, 5 years or whatever into the project, it might possibly be reevaluated, just like open space reevaluates all our other trails and uses. And maybe at this point, perhaps the entire area could be riding only on designated roads and trails, including the open areas, which are not all sand and bedrock. They truly are not. Probably on your tour, you saw that there are islands of vegetation in the open areas. And as I said in another public comment, at Crescent Sand Dune, which is outside of Tonopah, which is a big OHV riding area, what the rule there is, quote, open OHV use on unvegetated sand areas is allowed. OHV travel is limited to existing roads and trails in vegetated, let's see, OHV travel is limited to existing roads and trails in vegetated areas. So in other words, where there's vegetation, you must stay on the roads and the trails. So this would work really well in our open areas that are sand and bedrock. The riders could open ride on the sand and bedrock, but wherever the islands of vegetation are, they could be advised very clearly not to ride there. And that might also be included in the know before you go rules, which are on the website, the open space website. Maybe it could be changed or considered to be changed from cross-country freestyle riding to absolutely stay on designated roads and trails, open ride on sand and bedrock, and stay off the vegetation. The one sign, the one don't crush the brush sign at the bottom of off the trailer might not be quite enough. There's no such sign at Headlight or Ghost, the other open areas. So, just something we might consider for the next year in 2023. Thank you.
Okay, we're done with 5B. We move to 5C for possible action. Discussion possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for the submission of an application to the Conserve Nevada Grant Program for the Buzzies Ranch Waters Rights Acquisition Project. Lindsay again.
Mr. Chair, item 5B was an action item as well.
Yeah, what's it?
Okay.
I'm going, am I losing it?
And maybe I'm clearly losing it, just making sure. Okay, so 5C, looking at the Conserve Nevada grant program. So this is a continuation of our Buzzies Ranch Water Rights Acquisition Project. So we've talked to you about our program a few different times, kind of our proposed approach for getting water rights to support Buzzies Ranch. So this would be a continuation of that effort. The Conserve Nevada grant is accepting applications through the end of this year in a few different categories, which are listed here. We would be applying under the acquiring land and or water for conservation or recreation category. They have approximately $2 million for statewide projects, as well as $1 million for the Carson and Truckee watersheds specifically. So we would be eligible under either of those categories. But what we're going to be doing is applying for funding to support the next chunk of water rights that we want to purchase for Buzzies Ranch. After meeting with the grant program staff, they mentioned don't limit your ask. They want to know kind of the full picture of what you're looking at. They may have subsequent funding in the future. They may have limited applications. They may have more money than they originally anticipated. So anyways, we will be kind of laying out the entire picture as far as what we need for water rights, but most likely we'll be, asking for about 500,000 to support this next chunk of water rights. But they did give us that advice to kind of give them the whole picture of what's needed. Another great thing about this grant is that we can use the SNPLMA funding as match. So there is a 10%, minimum 10% match requirement. We would be far exceeding that by supplying our SNPLMA match. So between that and the fact that the Buzzy's Ranch property was acquired using state question 1 funds, which is kind of Conserve Nevada is the rebranding of state question 1. I think they'll see this as a very competitive project. It's a continuation of making sure that, the property that they elected to purchase will then have the water rights needed to support it. So we feel very strongly that we're going to be competitive. And so we are working on that application, and we are going to be taking that to the board this week, actually. So that's kind of the plan, and I'll definitely take any questions you might have.
Questions, comments?
So this 200 acre feet, would this get you to the full amount to manage that property, or would you need additional acre feet afterwards?
It depends on ultimately how much we're awarded. We'll be asking for what's needed to bring us to full irrigation, but they may choose to only, provide us a subset of that. But then at that point, we'll continue on with our plan, that our more global strategy to pursue, like a long-term lease to buy or other creative options, working with our partner. So we'll be happy to get what we can get, and then in the future, we may be going back for additional phases as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? No, I love it because it has a Carson River section in it, which just gives you a bunch of points right off the bat. So, and I'm glad they told you to ask for the whole picture, which is really cool that they did that, actually. So we'll do well. I think you'll bring back a success story here.
Hopefully.
So again, this is an action item.
I move to recommend the Board of Supervisors
Chair.
the submission.
I'm sorry. I was going to do the same exact thing. The second mistake I made is you call public comment before you vote on the action item. And I was, good timing. I'm slowed down. I ate some chocolate on the way over here. So I'm moving back to the regular structure thing, and I even put it on my program so I didn't give it up after I thought about that. So this is a chance for public comment on this item or any other item. If you want to come up, either one of you. Seeing none? Well, that makes me feel better. All right. So I bring it back for the board's vote. Go ahead, Rob. We'll do this right.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the submission of the grant application to Conserve Nevada for the Buzzy Ranch Water Rights Acquisition Project.
Do I get a second? Sam, the second. Any other discussion? Sure.
When would we know?
February.
February, thank you.
Soon. Yeah.
No, this is just a comment. I think this is a huge step for that property. If you guys are able to get this will help solidify long-term management of the property. So I think it's a big step forward.
Huge. Yeah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous decision. Thank you. We're excited about that. Put us on your email network as soon as you find out from that one. Huh? All right, so we're now to 5, so I don't goof this up, huh? 5D. There we go. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors of proposed amendments to the Open Space Advisory Committee, OSAC, bylaws, specifically to amend the OSAC mission statement requested by member Susan Martinovich, and Lindsay's the lead, so away we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So discussion regarding amending the OSAC mission statement, which is embedded in the OSAC bylaws, kind of dates back to our retreat that we had December of last year. And at that retreat, it was identified by all of you that perhaps our mission was missing certain key words or elements to really explain who we are and what we have been charged with. So there's been kind of a subcommittee that was charged with putting together some recommended language. Member Martinovich has been leading that effort. And so along with the staff report is a red line copy of the bylaws that just kind of shows the proposed language for the mission statement. That's identified in red line. And then you'll notice there are some just basic edits in blue. Those were identified by our district attorney, Ben Johnson. So with that, I will take any questions.
Susan, did you want open discussion, or do you just want me to ask for discussion?
I'll give a little bit of background since we did put some work into it. Again, I appreciate Robert and Sam for helping, and just give you a little background of why the changes. You can see that will develop is crossed out, and to me that the open space program was already developed, and so when it says will, that means that it's already done. And so we put the S's after the words because that makes it a little more present and looks at going forward. So the Open Space Committee advances, oversees, and supports the open space program by working in, and you can see the word conjunction or concert is crossed out. Felt that conjunction is a better word because to me conjunction meant doing things together with the same goal, as opposed to with, and I know it's the nuance, but with kind of means interpreted at the same time. And there are times where Lindsay's team and Greg's team are doing things, this board is doing things, we still have the same goal, but we're not doing exactly the same thing. So that's thus the word why conjunction. With staff and the public to acquire, interpret is crossed out, and educate is put in, and felt that interpret and educate are similar, but the word educate is broader, and interpret doesn't exactly educate, but educate can interpret. So really it came down to trying to use less words. The strategic session that we had, the word promote was suggested, but I think that educate can encompass promote as well. And so we also, though, added the word protect. And then enhance the natural landscape, architecture, and cultural resources while balancing. You can see the needs of the public is crossed out. I don't think we'll ever meet all the needs of the public. They just have too many. So, but what we can do is help the public with opportunities and connections to recreation. And we talked in our strategic plan about equitable, and so thus we added that. So while balancing the public's quality of life opportunities for equitable connection to active and passive recreation. So that was the thinking behind this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for that work, committee. So any other comments from any other board members?
I only have one. And it's just a little, I would take out the one and between preserve and protect. It's just a, preserve, comma, protect, comma, because educate, because then there's and enhance, because you kind of have an extra and in that list.
Speaking on behalf of the committee, we would be acceptable to that change.
Otherwise, it's beautiful. Did a fantastic job.
Any other comments from Jay?
Yeah, maybe just a question. Was there any discussion about possibly adding, expanding, or, I don't know, increasing open space? Is that one of the missions that we want to expand, or? I
The,
don't-
the idea was the word advances, because that would help grow it or build it in a way, because expanding could mean a lot of things to different people. So if you're advancing could be growing, and that's where some of the word was and why that word was used.
It's good? Okay, so mission statements are really hard to tackle. This one's gone real simple, but I'm gonna be a thorn here in the side here. I'm a recreation profession for many, many years, and the active recreation is totally different than passive. And I even brought the municipal code that defines that we're supposed to use passive recreation, but I could understand why other people would interpret riding a bicycle as being active, but it's not. So the word active in here, and I brought examples in the code, and then there's actually examples in the open space plan that show what active recreation is, which is hockey, baseball, basketball, skiing, soccer,
OHV.
golf.
OHV is active. That's why I
Yeah.
added to have that in there since when this.
Well,
mission
I think you need to clarify that, because we certainly don't want people to come in and propose a soccer field in some open space. So,
Okay.
so I'm willing to be, I understood that it's very active OHV, but the OHV came to us as a requirement by federal permit to allow us to have those properties at Prison Hill. So it's like a extension, but we were also talking about it in other open space areas too. So that might be the exception, but I just hate putting the word active in there. Jen, you raised your hand, so did you?
Thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I think, Rob jumped in too, but OHV is active. So it is something that the Board of Supervisors accepted and put under the auspice of this board and the open space team to manage. So we do have to recognize it. Obviously, everywhere else in the city that is a part of the open space program is primarily passive recreation. Maybe you put something like where appropriate, or something at the end after passive recreation, because there are designated areas obviously for active use, but OHV is, I think, the definition of active recreation. And we need to recognize that this board is going to continue to provide oversight and guidance with that use, and it wasn't really contemplated in the previous mission.
Okay, I'm willing to
I mean,
let that
just
go.
to add to it, I guess the only thing, I think you may have already put it there, to connect to designated, active, and passive recreation. If you're just adding that one word designated, I think may solve that.
Because you need to change the city code if you're gonna put active in it, because it's totally passive in that city code. So that was gonna be my hook to get but that. So I like what he said, though. I like what Rob said, designated active, or Jen, I know, between the two. Is there any other comments on that? I hated to bring that up so we wouldn't have a totally free, for Susan's work, stamped it. Good. Does everybody agree to the designated? Any other comments to that? Thoughts, Susan? Nope. All right, well then, before we make a motion, I have to call for public comment. Public comment to this before we make a motion?
Robin Orloff. I couldn't hear all of that discussion, I'm sorry. But that's a good point about active and designated active. Is it possible to say passive and designated OHV use, or OHV use in designated areas without even using active? Does active make it too complicated?
I listened to you, but it's late to jump in the game now here, so, but we'll take that into consideration. Any other thoughts before I call for the question? Nope, so can I get a motion then?
I will make the motion. So I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the proposed amendment as presented with two changes. Take out the word "and," which is between preserve and protect, and add the word designated prior to the active. And that's my motion.
Do I have a second? Good job, Sam. Second from Sam. Any other discussion before we make this move? This is a mission statement that we want to visit again for a few years. What, Jay, what are you going to say?
Man, I hate a lot of words in these things.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have to say active and passive? Is there some other recreation we're missing by having those two words? And I'm looking at you, Chair.
Well,
Is-
in recreation, you use those two terms, so
Those are the only two.
that's what you use in recreation, unless Jen's used another word. I haven't, in my career, used, I had managed passive recreation areas, and then I had active, I had Sand Harbor, or I had the backcountry, or I have
Okay.
Spooner. There's different facilities. But passive was always known, the one that you wanted to have, and that's what trailheads usually support, passive recreation. So it's a common term used. So
I'm-
I
I'm-
was willing
I'm
to
good with
accept
it.
designated, but just
I'm
because
good.
there's a lot of work got
Just
done
a
on this.
discussion. Carry on.
Carry on. Okay, we have a carry on. We still got
Mr. Chair, when would this go before the Board of Supervisors?
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So, so it would, whenever Lindsay can get it to the board,
Oh,
we could just go to the next meeting, based on the schedule.
Thank you.
Can I make one suggestion now that we got going to this and I was looking back at the report and we have all these adaptive opportunities and I think it's always important to recognize, I know we don't want to add more words, but feel free to say no to me if you don't want, but perhaps we take Jay's suggestion and say opportunities for equitable connection to recreation for all ages and abilities or all abilities or something like that.
Equitable means the same thing to me,
Yeah,
without the boys and the end 3 words you threw in there. So we're still a discussion. I haven't made a motion.
but I think not having to say active or passive, I think it still has the same meaning.
This is what happens on mission statements now.
I know. No, I think the subcommittee did a great job.
I know
I'm
they
good.
did.
I saw active and passive, and I didn't know the definition or anything or what the differentiation was. So I was actually leaning more towards equitable connection to open space recreation. Is just clear for people, but
So we have a change. I have a motion and a second.
I'll go either way. That was just
Well, if I get some support for that, we'll kill the last motion here in a
I'm
second.
going to add one question to the chair then. So when I did the research on this as well, I only saw 2 types of recreation, active and passive, right? So I made the suggestion to add active to make sure it wasn't missed because of OHV.
Right.
But going back to what we've just been discussing, is it really necessary to have them both in there if it's both? Those are the only 2 options. So
So
I'm-
what Jay
I'm-
was saying?
yeah, I'm on board
Okay.
with Jay at the
Okay, we have
moment.
2. So I have a motion and a second on the floor. So would the second withdraw their second? So we can go back to these changes? I mean, it's still up for vote.
Okay.
We can carry through the motion if you don't want to do that.
Can I ask Jay a quick question? So, you're saying, can you repeat what your proposal was again? Just so I fully understand.
I had several proposals.
Well, that said muddy it up.
So starting with one, I like less words whenever possible when it comes to mission statements. So my first question, I think, was really, if there's only 2 types of recreation, active and passive, do we even need to have that there? And then, but if we need to say certain types of recreation, why don't we say plain language, open space recreation, so people can understand it? So, but I'm actually okay with what you came up with. We can go on.
I just want
I'll
to make
vote
sure.
yes either way.
So we can vote on this with the first, I mean, we had a motion and a second. I can vote on it if you don't withdraw your second.
I'll withdraw my motion. And so I then would like to make another motion.
Can we do that without the second bailing out on me officially?
I'll withdraw my second.
Thank you. Then I think I'm clear on the basis.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors amendments to the open space advisory bylaws as presented with 2 changes. One is to remove the word "and" between preserve and protect, and the other is to remove the words active and passive, so that that sentence would read equitable connection to recreation. And I guess as part of the discussion, well, that's my motion. I know it was made to go to open space, but why are we defining it if we don't need to define it?
Well, she's got a motion. I
Yeah,
don't have a
because I already
second.
know it's the program.
Well, because I'm thinking, using
Let
that,
me-
then that puts the
Let me get
onus.
the motion moved to a second first,
Well,
then
I-
go to discussion. Or you-
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll
to that?
second.
Okay, I got a second. Now I'm going to open the discussion.
Because that then puts the onus on the municipal code, which calls it passive recreation.
But we already know there's OHVs there. So go ahead, Jen.
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I don't think you need to have open space in front of recreation because we've already established in the beginning of the motion or the mission that it says the open space program. So we already know we're talking about open space. So I don't think we need to repeat it.
Yeah.
Should we leave it just recreation or add outdoor recreation?
Connection to, I think.
So far, I have a motion and a second for just recreation at this point. That was discussion, unless somebody's willing to move the motions again, which I hope I can just call for the question here. Any more discussion that you feel strong enough that we should change it again? We've done really good for a mission statement. We weren't here for an hour over terms here. So. I thought it was important we do this because there was a lot of discussion about that.
For
And
the
thanks-
record, I'd like to say Mark brought this up.
I did
So
know it was
active.
brought up at the, it was brought up at the retreat that we did, yeah, that redo the mission. Well, thanks, Jay, for your solid support. All right, so I'm going to call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It passed, Susan. Excellent job. Thanks, Jen, for jumping in.
That
I always
works.
use support from the administrator. Thank you.
That works.
I don't know what staff thinks about that one, but phew, we're done with that. We're moving on. All right, so the next item, we're down to 6.
6.
We got through the meat of the program here so far. So we're down to number 6, the director's report. Updates regarding department projects, programs, facilities, events, grants, status of recruitment for vacant positions, board and commissions, attendance policy, and the Board of Supervisors action items. Well, that's a list, Jennifer.
I'm going to be super fast.
Okay.
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just want to announce a couple full-time positions that we have posted. You can go to carson.org/jobs. And we have a Parks Crew Coordinator, Park Maintenance Worker, Park Ranger, and most of our seasonal positions, especially in recreation, are open. So if you know anybody, apply. Great time to work over the holidays when you're off school for those seasonal positions, but that's it.
So you're still having the same recruiting problems, huh? Hasn't moved or changed, huh? So I don't have to call for public comments after the report, do I? No, I didn't think so. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure. Made my mistake. So 6B, Greg's turn to come up for the Trails Coordinator Report, activities related to trail projects managed by the Open Space Division, including trail-related grants, programs, and events.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Greg Berger, and Trails Coordinator. So we'll do an update on trails in the last few months. At my last report, I talked about the grand opening for the Capitol Tahoe Trail on July 8th. At that time, we still had 2 miles of trail to complete so that we could get the trail off of the Snow Valley Peak Road. And I'm happy to say that that was completed by volunteers from Muscle Powered and a private contractor in the last few months. And so after more than 8 years of effort by a lot of people, volunteers from Muscle Powered, by a lot of people from various agencies and organizations. The Capitol Tahoe Trail is now 100% complete, and it includes signage, which looks like this with the name of the trail and the official logo and logos of all the partners that are part of that project. So it's been a long time coming, and it's pretty exciting to have it finally done. Update on the Prison Hill West project. So at the last meeting, you were presented with 30% plans. Since then, staff has met with the design consultant, and we've discussed what changes need to happen to those plans. We've discussed public input and comments, and they're going back and incorporating what they can into that. There will be project updates maintained on our website, so anybody can go to carson.org/trails, and if you scroll down below the interactive map, there is a project status and updates, and that's where we'll keep updates on that project as it moves forward. The Odyssey Trail, Paul Sinnott with Muscle Powered, the crew lead, he has completed the next phase of that trail, which now takes the trail all the way to the top of Stegosaurus Ridge, looking down into Dead Rock Canyon. The next phase will go down into Dead Rock Canyon. That trail, I've been getting a lot of great feedback from a lot of people on that. It's a great trail. I love to run it and ride it all the time. I'm always up there on that trail, and it's so fun to have that one. Desert Peach Trail, which will create a new fun and sustainable alignment from the Prison Hill 5th Street Loop trails to the North Loop, is finally coming on board. We're just completing a contract with a contractor who will do that work this spring or summer. And so that will be a great addition to connectivity in the Prison Hill area. I wanted to update everybody on the Boy Scout or the Eagle Scout projects that we completed in 2023. On my sheet here, it says that we had 5 projects. We did have to cancel or reschedule one project for the spring because of weather, but the 4 projects that we did do this year completed some great work. Chris Borges did a realignment on a steep portion of a social trail on Prison Hill, and there was a great realignment. Added a couple of turns in there, and that's another one that I like to ride and run on. And then Chris Collins did a project in the Carson River Canyon. He installed, in addition to our kiosk sign, which has a map that identifies the old mills that were the historic mills that were present in that area, and then he completed signage, wayfinding signage throughout the canyon that identifies the day use areas and also the historic mill sites. So that was a great project. And then Samuel Gaskell did a realignment of a very steep portion of the West Loop Trail on Prison Hill, including decommissioning of an old segment. And that was kind of fun. They did such a great job decommissioning that old segment that just as we were finishing up that project in the afternoon, there was somebody that approached from the top and a couple people that approached from the bottom, and they were completely perplexed. They couldn't even see where the old trail had been, and they were looking for it. So I thought they had done a very good job on that. And then lastly, Dylan Cooley completed a realignment of a steep and erosive social trail on Lone Mountain, and that was very timely that he came to us looking for a project because we had just gotten some calls from some homeowners who were having issues with stormwater runoff into their backyards, largely due to this fall line trail, which went straight up and down the hill, and it was very erosive, carrying a lot of sediment. So we decommissioned that and made a sustainable alignment. And so hopefully this coming winter, that will resolve some of the issues that we were having there. Related to trail maintenance, we've done several things in the last few months. We worked on the Sagebrush Loop, which is one of the loop trails at the north end of Prison Hill. There was a very sandy section in there, and those trails were designed to be accessible to adaptive mountain bikes, or 4 feet plus wide. And with that sandy section, it was very difficult for travel for any bicycle. So we put in some road base And we're going to see how that works over time. I mean, putting road base on sand is not the way that you would build a hardened surface, but that's not the intent. It's meant to be a single track natural surface trail. And so we're hoping that this just makes it easier travel rather than going through that thick sand that they had. We'll see how that looks in the spring. And then Riverview Park, the Riverview Park trail that parallels the river, closest to the river, was completely destroyed in the floods that we had last spring. And so actually Jared Whitaker, our maintenance coordinator, put together a great plan where we purchased the road base, a contractor did the grading, and then our staff ran the water truck, the backhoe, and the roller. And so that repair cost us just $20,000. The contractor said that if he had done it himself, it would have been about $50,000. So I thought from a fiscally responsible standpoint, that was a great way of approaching that repair. So kudos to Jared Whitaker. And then they've also been, Jared and his staff have also been doing work on the Empire Ranch Trail, patching some small damage sections and doing a lot of mastication on that. The Eagle Creek segment, which connects the Empire Ranch Trail to the Riverview Park, was also wiped out by flooding last year. In fact, there's a hole I took a picture of Lindsay inside of that, and I can barely even see her head sticking up. So it's pretty bad. We did get a recreational trails program grant to do a slight realignment there, and we'll be working on some permitting this winter, and then hopefully in the spring we'll get a contractor to fix that. So that connection should be good next summer. Buzzy's Ranch Trail, we've repaired a few sections that got a little bit of damage from the flooding, but by and large that trail survived very, very well. And then the Moffett Open Space Trailhead, our staff put down new road-based material in the parking lot and added split rail fencing along the perimeter, and then we added a Adopt a Park sign for some folks that are been taking care of that area, picking up trash and keeping it nice and clean. And so those are some of the projects that we've done in addition to the many, many miles of single track that have been maintained by Muscle Powered throughout the year. And they have done a phenomenal job maintaining our single track. So with that, I will take any questions that the committee may have.
Comments, questions?
I had one, I forgot it.
Donna had one but forgot it. So I just have to tell you, Greg, it's this phenomenal program you put together in this town. So that one picture and the other one you get an award was well deserved. You are out there getting things done. Which I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes. The article you guys put in this was just kind of made you a superstar for a while. Your 15 minutes of fame, but for what you do, it's just amazing. The articles are in a publication about how lucky this community is in here. So thank you for all that you do for trails in this community and for the trail community. You're beyond that. So thank you.
I love every minute of it.
Yeah, I know you do. Thank you. Anybody? Oh, do you remember what it was? Okay.
I think, where do we stand on the Centennial Park? The whole Centennial plan?
Yeah, good question. So that went through, it's most of those trail segments, which is 22 miles of trail segments, that would be making connections from Centennial Park to Washoe Lake State Park to McClellan Peak and to Virginia City. Most of that is on BLM land, and so it's gone through the BLM scoping process, and we're currently going through NEPA. BLM is actually doing the NEPA on it. Wow. So once that is completed, then it will be eligible to start working on it. Most of those trails are going to be outside of Carson City, so they'll be in Washoe County and then hopefully in the future into Story County, but right now it's Washoe County and Carson City. So that does make it a little bit more complicated as far as who's going to get the funding to do the work. But we can certainly work on segments that are within Carson City, and Muscle Powered can probably work on grant funding for some of the things in Washoe County, and as well as, Washoe County can probably help with some of that too.
Was the land swaps resolved, those land swap
So
issues?
another good question. So, yes, there were some issues with land swaps related to some parcels where the trail was proposed to go through, and that has been resolved. And so all of the parcels will remain under BLM jurisdiction.
That's including the new proposed or soon-to-be proposed Washoe County Lands Bill?
Yeah, that's what Member Everson was referring to. So the Washoe County Lands Bill had proposed some land swaps for some parcels on BLM property or BLM managed lands that we had proposed for the trails, and that's been taken. It's been removed from the lands bill. My understanding is that the lands, from Senator Rosen's office, is that the lands swaps are going to be facilitated elsewhere, but not in that location.
Anybody else? I don't know how you got BLM to do a NEPA. I haven't known a federal agency for 10 years do NEPA on a trail. They always use contracts and stuff, so that's quite the deal if that happened. Did you help facilitate that? Or who's the lead? Was it Paul Pichelet?
I mean, there's been a lot of people within Muscle Powered, from Jeff Potter to
Yeah.
Chelsea Kinchlow, and others that have worked very hard on that. I remember being at a meeting with BLM with you years ago. So it's been something that's been in the works for many, many years. And I think that, from BLM standpoint, it's something that they definitely want to do. It's a very visual urban interface property that really needs to have this happen, and they recognize that there's a need within the community for these connections, and so over the years they've been able to budget into their.
I want to give them huge accolades to get back in trails again. So they're always so booked. So do you know that there's a trail being worked on from Reno from Hidden Valley? So you know about that trail, that the ultimate connection, when would you connect to that trail to Centennial? So there's a motion working on that and money set aside dealing with private properties, which will be a lot of fun to see how that comes together. So I don't know if you knew that. So you'll walk from here to Reno when we get done.
Yeah, there is an issue, though, with connecting both the Hidden Valley Trail and our trail with Story County. There's some pushback from Story County.
That I wasn't aware of, so. Okay, well, that's another subject. All right, so thank you for your report. We'll go now to I'm sorry, I almost skipped Senior Natural Resource Specialist. And the Open Space Manager report, activities related to projects managed by Open Space Division, including updates within the Carson River corridor. You sat through this whole meeting, I almost dropped you off at the end there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. Just kind of give you some updates on things we've been working on over the past few months. And of course, Marina's here if any specific questions arise. So starting with end of season sheep monitoring. So with our sheep project, every year in the fall, at the end of grazing season, when things start to go dormant, we go out and we take pictures, mainly to see if there's any long-lasting impacts from the sheep project that we need to be aware of, and luckily we never observe that. But it's a good chance to get out and see kind of the impacts that the sheep do make, and it was a great opportunity to get Marina out to all the sites in preparation of spring monitoring as well. Some other fuel reduction related announcements. So Open Space did work with the Carson City Fire Department to put together an application for $4.3 million to the Forest Service Community Wildfire Defense Grant. So primarily the fire department was the applicant, but we were an identified partner. So the idea with this grant would be to really increase the fire department's ability to have wildland crews that can go out and do fuel reduction efforts throughout Carson City and on open space properties. And it would allow them to have more staff that we could then utilize for fuel reduction along trails, as well as at the wildland urban interface. And so we won't know until February 2024 if that was announced, awarded, but we are hopeful that we will continue working with the fire department on that project. Other activities over the last few months, working on several annual monitoring projects. So we go out every year and we monitor the architectural resources out at Silver Saddle Ranch. So the buildings that are out there, the historic buildings. We take repeat photo monitoring and a quick building assessment, and we supply all that information back to the State Historic Preservation Office to fulfill an annual monitoring requirement, but also just to ensure that nothing dramatically has changed with those structures and that they continue to be in good condition for their age. So that was one report that we completed. And then Marina and I also went out to Horse Creek Ranch and we completed the annual conservation easement monitoring. That report will be coming in April 2024 for the committee to review. But everything looks good out there. Related to the Carson River, a few specific updates. So in the annual report, I had mentioned the Canada Thistle project. So into 2023, we continue with that project. There's some really great photos here that Marina's compiled where you can actually see small spots on the leaves of the Canada Thistle. That's how you really can tell that it's working. Basically, that rust fungus has inoculated into the leaves. And it's almost like a fern where there's spores, and so these spores then spread to other plants, and that's really ultimately how these populations are able to be negatively impacted. And so we've seen really great results here. It was a pretty large patch of Canada thistle when we first got started, and now about 5 years later, we are seeing very little Canada thistle out there. So this is a really awesome project. And we don't have that many sites of total Canada thistle monoculture, or else we would utilize this treatment method more. So it does work best when it's in a high density location. Also related to the Carson River, as Member Kimbrough mentioned, we have been working on the Carson River Master Plan update. So this is working with the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program with the National Park Service. So this has been a very interesting process for staff. It's very much a strategic planning effort. We've spent a lot of time identifying partners and kind of identifying a strategy for bringing different members into the fold to help us with this update. Right now, we're kind of going through a mission and vision analysis to help guide the planning effort for this project. Obviously, we're updating the Carson River Master Plan, but since it was completed in 1996, a lot has changed since then, so we want to make sure that the plan is reflective of our efforts moving forward. So I'll continue to bring updates to the group, but as of right now, we are definitely in that strategic planning phase, and we've also brought on CWSD as a key partner in this planning process as well. Some other river updates. So the Mexican Dam Portage Project is a project in partnership with CWSD. So this is a project to construct a takeout location above the Mexican Dam that would allow boaters to safely exit the river, portage their watercraft around, and then get back on the river. So it would extend the length of the aquatic trail. Some initial kickoff with our staff and CWSD staff has been completed, and then also the geotechnical survey looking at the soil out there has also been completed. So that project is starting to kick off. Also along the river is the Buzzy's Ranch Bank Stabilization Project. We have been working with consultants for the past few months to put together hydrological modeling of that area. We really want to understand what is happening at the river level, look at the soils, really be able to understand how urgent a treatment or a bank stabilization is needed out there. I think ultimately staff know that we are going to need to go in and do bank stabilization there, just given the rate that we're seeing erosion happening. But it's going to be costly. And also doing any sort of intervention on the river needs to be done, very carefully and appropriately. So we want to make sure that we have the analysis behind our plan and approach to back that up. So I'm hoping to have kind of a more formal presentation related to the results of that modeling in February of 2024. We have talked about water rights, so I will skip over that item. And then moving into community programs and education, there have been a few really great programs over through the fall. Everything from doing another thistle dig out at Horse Creek Ranch, which was a beautiful day, to cottonwood planting along the Mexican Ditch Trail. So we utilized our volunteer coordinators kind of last days to put together some great programs for us. We also installed several wood duck nesting boxes along the river, and you can see photos in our report here to kind of see what those look like. And we hope to develop kind of a more broad monitoring program where volunteers will go out and they'll look at the boxes, understand, if they're being utilized, restock them with shavings, make sure that it's a really useful thing to have out in the open space. So we are excited to kind of get that program off the ground. We participated in the second annual Source Water Assessment Day. That was up at the Kings Canyon Trailhead, teaching folks about their source water, drinking water protection, watershed protection, all that good stuff. So that was a great event. And then Marina has been getting her feet wet with education, working on Snapshot Day and working with river wranglers. So the fall is always a busy time for us as far as volunteers and education programs are concerned. So we're looking forward to continuing that into next year. Another update I wanted to highlight, Greg and I presented at the American Planning Association conference. So we participated in a panel presentation, which was titled Balancing Economic Development with Environmental Sustainability Through the Lens of Outdoor Recreation. So this was a great panel. There were folks from Department of Outdoor Rec, Travel Nevada, SMG Consulting, and then we actually had Lieutenant Governor Anthony Stavros on our panel. So we were very honored to participate in that panel, and it was a great opportunity to talk about kind of our recreation efforts and mindset in Carson City, and ultimately be able to brag about open space as well. So you can see a photo there from our panel. We're all in our fancy blazers. And then just kind of some personnel updates. So Kelsey Kinchlow, who's our volunteer coordinator, has departed, moved on to a great position with the state. So we're very proud of Chelsea. We did actually go ahead and already backfill that position. So Erin Larson will be starting as the new volunteer coordinator just after the first of the year. We're super excited for Erin to start. She is coming to us as an AmeriCorps, so we can kind of continue that model of uplifting our AmeriCorps and being part of their professional development. She seems super eager, super organized. So we'll bring her to a meeting so you all can meet her as well. And with that, there's just a few different events listed here so you can kind of see the dates and when things occurred. And I will take any questions.
Donna.
Yeah, does this rust thistle fungus work only on Canada?
Unfortunately, yeah. Any of our biocontrol agents, part of the reason why they're so effective and why we feel comfortable using them is that they have a very specific host relationship. So we don't want to put something out that is just a generalist that could affect anything. We want to make sure it's really tied to affecting that specific host plant. So it's very effective for Canada thistle for
I
sure.
was hoping it worked on both thistle too.
We just tackle that with our hands, I guess.
Any other comments? Another great report. I mean, it's like that was 23 too, which helped. So they're not doing the full-blown party out at Silver Saddle this year, huh? They're just doing wagon rides, I guess, because I see you're helping them on the list here. So, are you running the wagon?
Luckily, no, I'm not qualified for that. But yeah, we as a department did not move forward with Homestead this year. So Foster is just doing kind of they used to do an annual open house. So this is part of
Right.
that program. And then they've actually been able to work with our department to create a little bit more formality with their wagon rides. So you can actually go into ActiveNet, which is our kind of registration software for events, and we help them book the wagon rides. And
Oh,
so
good.
we're kind of partnering with them on that. And they're going to be doing wagon rides, I think, kind of fall colors, springtime, and then holiday times. So they're going to be expanding that program.
Yeah, I helped last time do the wagon ride, and that was a very difficult reservation system because the rides last so long and so many people were in line for 40 minutes sometimes. So that's good. So just another outstanding report. I mean, it's the mix of all that you're due with all the other stuff that you umbrella, but this is the field work. This is the stuff on the ground getting it done. So just another excellent report. Are you excited about these meetings? Now you know what you're missing? I'm sure you're.
Yeah, Lindsay's taking it easy on me.
Yeah.
My first 6 months, but ready to ramp up in 2024.
That's right. You'll be the lead next time. Yeah. Thank you, both of you. So, anybody else? One more chance with the comments for all that work. Just unbelievable. Okay. So where am I going on the agenda next? Okay. So member announcements and requests for information. So I'll start down with Susan with member announcements. Thank you.
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm okay.
Jay? Rob, do you want to make an announcement here, huh? Thank you.
So this will be my last open space meeting. My term ends at the end of the calendar year, and with the current change in my position at work and the other obligations that came with that, I do not physically have the time or energy to be here, especially with 2 young kids in sports 24/7. So I do appreciate all the time and energy that the committee put into this, as well as everybody else in open space, Jen, Lindsay, Greg, and I haven't seen much, but I appreciate the efforts, and it's really nice to see somebody that has noxious weeds experience in this program. So I appreciate everything and everything that everybody has done, and this is a really, really, really well-run program. It's a great example for other cities as well as states to be able to try to mimic what you guys are able to do. It's really impressive. So I was glad I'm part of it. Maybe in a few years when kids are a little bit older and maybe my job changes, I could look back into it again. Thank you.
You will be missed. You do know that. The next thing I'm going to bring up is the matrix. So you weren't able to fill out the matrix, so we know all your talents here. So, but I am going to ask that you do come to one more meeting in February, so that we can recognize your service to this board. So please put that in your calendar, and you can bring the kids and the family, and you can sit on the other side, and you can leave when you're done. See? So, yeah, well, hopefully. If not, it'll be another meeting after that. So thanks, Rob. We greatly appreciate that and understand. Okay, so under everybody else doing announcements. So you know you were given the matrix, and that came out of the the workshop, and you'll see there's quite a bit of experience on this board that show people that in the future, hopefully this is a tool, because it was meant to be a tool for them, the staff to see as much as us see what the experience is on this board. And there's a ton of experience in all the different categories that we even talked about. So use this, keep it, it's yours. And hopefully the staff sees them too, so you guys will know who works on the board. To know that these people are all here on their own time and their own commitment to this community, but bring all these skills with them. So, I mean, it's greatly appreciated. And you know, Sam, you didn't check a lot of boxes, but we greatly appreciate that generation coming to gain more boxes as you grow your career. So,
There's an error on mine.
was it?
Yeah. Camping, yes. Swimming, no. I sink.
Oh my gosh. So I'm sorry, you'll have to start swimming now. You're in the matrix. Yeah, well, that would make sense that I would make a mistake on the last person when I got my results. All right, well, I'll make that change and send them back out again. And the other thing I wanted to speak about was I opened this up out of the newspaper, and this full-blown article on trails is just phenomenal. I mean, that's just great. It just gives accolades to these folks for all the work that they do, and that they could take them out and discuss this and get the whole community to understand how important trails are as a community, for them to publish this and make that a key point for Carson City, which is true. I don't know, there's not many places on the planet where you live at the base of a mountain and have 8 million miles of trail right out your back door. It's just phenomenal. All the way to Tahoe, you can take off with your hiking or biking, and you're in Lake Tahoe a few hours later, but you're still taking off. And the goal is to get to Reno. You can get out to Washoe Valley. You can get to Douglas County. So all the connections are being made. It's
So I
phenomenal.
just want to add to that comment. I actually have used the amount of trails and recreation as a recruitment to hire people in my office. So just so you know, it is a selling point to get people to come, staff to come work here and say, hey, on your lunch break, you can go ride these trails right behind your office. Just want you to know that.
And then so thank you for that. And I just want to make sure everybody knew that you guys are in there, and that hopefully you send copies to your grandmothers, your aunts, your uncles, your kids. You put some picture on the wall, you do all those things. Also, I just wanted to recognize, if anybody really wanted this beautiful word art that I did, the frame, you let me know. I'll send you a nice copy for it again. But this has been a great meeting, and it's all the way across the spectrum of all the reports and all this information you guys have given us. And it's amazing. We don't meet that often, but the amount of information you give us at every meeting is just phenomenal every time. So it's just like, whoa. That's all I can say. It's just a big wow. So, are we done? Yeah, we're done if I quit talking. So, let's go to future agenda items. Discussion only, obviously, but what do you have on the list, Lindsay, to start with?
Well, I'm just realizing that perhaps future agenda items was not included in your packet, so I apologize for that. But in the first meeting of February, we typically always bring kind of some usual items like budgets. Hopefully I'll have that annual report for 2023 done. So the first meeting will definitely be budget and work plan focused. And then, of course, we have some of our usual items like the Horse Creek Ranch report that'll be forthcoming. So nothing really out of the usual. So if there's any ideas or recommendations for future agenda items, please let me know.
Is it a combined meeting? I can't remember.
Nope, the next meeting in February will be just OSAC.
Okay. Anybody else had items for the agenda? Jen, you look like you wanted to say something.
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. You'll need to elect a new chair and a vice
That's
chair
on my
at the
list,
first
yeah.
meeting.
I thought that even took place in December usually, but maybe not. It doesn't matter.
This is
actually.
typically the first meeting of the
Is
year.
it of the
Yeah.
year? So I had elections down, and then I talked about Endor, but I thought we talked about Endor coming at a joint meeting. Is that true? Remember we just, yeah. Okay,
Mhm.
so skip that. And then the awards at the February meeting.
Yep.
For service, not the other open award meeting. Okay, I think we're done. Nobody has any more needs on the agenda. That'll be another busy agenda. So we're at the number 9 for final public comments. If anybody wants to come up to make comments in the meeting, you have.
Denny French, Carson City. Thank you, Chair. And thank you for being so open about the open and public comments part. I appreciate that.
It's
And
part of my job, yeah. and
well,
goof
I
up,
get
but-
that. I appreciate it too. And as far as being able to hear, there's air conditioning and such that comes in on occasion, but I just want to encourage all of us to sit towards the mic, and if we take our conversations to side, we might want to follow the mic anyway. So thank you. And I would like to suggest something for the agenda to the next opportunity that you can add, is that I feel that the determination of what should be used on multi-use tracks or trails or roads or whatever, how you're going to determine it, I think needs to be clarified. I think the use of motorized is considered more on the electric side of things, and engines or certain amps and such. I know it's stated in a deal, but it's not real clarified, because the new electric vehicles can go quite fast. And even though they're fitting within certain guidelines of certain carburation of it or determining how much power a vehicle can have sometimes doesn't necessarily relate directly to the speed it can go. And type of wheels that might be allowed. I saw such big tracks in one single track area on the trails that were like this. I took pictures and I'm going, what in the world? That's a one, you know, it's just like a bicycle or a motorcycle or something, but the wheels on it were like this. There was not another set that said, okay, it's a four-wheel drive. And so just determining the size of wheels, the type of construction, the weight and such, because when I was out, I saw horse tracks and they're dropping, so I could tell they're horses, but I couldn't tell if they were wild or they were ridden. It looked more wild by their transport or the way that they were going on and off the trail. But my thought is it started to tear up that hard pack. That's that number 2 area of the trail that's along Prison Hill, which I consider a road no matter now what everybody's saying. But the main thing is that it doesn't stay, and perhaps it will wash away after the rain and not be a track and such. But if some horse was galloping, it could make some pretty good mess of the area. But otherwise, I really appreciate all of the reviews. It's a little hard to dunk back into 2002, but it was nice that we'll be facing the 2003 review soon. So I appreciate that. It will bring us up to date on where we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin Orloff. I have to smile a little bit about the discussion about active versus passive, just because back in 2010 to 2014, it was a really big discussion also. And, we had a lot of talk about it, and it's kind of a complicated definition. Also, I just wanted to, for the record, I think you've heard it before again, I'm just a little disappointed with everything that open space and you all are achieving in terms of protection of natural resources and incredible trails that our city should be very proud of. Prison Hill being an open space and being protected by a conservation easement. I don't know if you all have read that document. It was written by the citizens in 2008 because they wanted to protect Prison Hill, Silver Saddle, and the uplands in perpetuity from any change in purpose or protection. And I just feel like the putting in the trail, the caliber, I call it a road. It's a road constructed, engineered trail. I don't see any trail like it anywhere else in Carson City. I don't see it on the west side. I don't see it in Centennial. I think it's just really impactful and probably in my opinion, our most protected open space just because of the conservation easement, even though I'm told it's broadly interpreted. AASHTO is not required by SNPLA. It's not required by the Forest Service tells me they don't require it outside of city limits. They don't use it outside of city limits. It's usually along roads and highways and within city boundaries. And ADA also is not required by SNPLA, but we decided, or it was decided to do that on Prison Hill. There's lots of ADA trails in town all over from Longview all the way to behind the college. The wetlands is ADA. There's a lot of paved accessible trails. I'm wondering why the VNT, I don't believe it's totally paved, but I think that would be an awesome trail to pave from start to finish with historical plaques. It brings people into town, and I think it would bring tourist dollars into town just because it goes, it has such history. I think that would be something to consider. And the other thing I'd like to maybe be considered, and a BLM staffer pointed this out to me when we were looking at the Carson River Trail 2 from Silver Saddle, looking up, and the road was very obvious because it's yellow. It's not the color of the soil, and that BLM person suggested that maybe with the Carson River Trail 3, that we try to match the soil of the trail, the color, because it's road base. It can be, I guess, matched with any color, to match it with the soil so it doesn't stand out. And I think if you look from Fifth Street or from Silver Saddle and you look at that road that's Carson River Trail 2, you'll see a difference in the color. It does match the cheatgrass, but it doesn't match the soil. So that might be part of the design that could be considered for that trail. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so all I'm looking for is a motion to adjourn at this point. So
I'll
moved.
motion.
There you go, Rob, your last hoorah. We're shut down. Thank you, folks. Good meeting. Thanks, Susan.